K-Pop Demon Hunters 2 is coming, and as always, we are here to jump right into the meat of it. Netflix and Sony have officially locked in their plans. It looks like the animated musical sequel is aiming for a 2029 release, as Bloomberg first reported. And although that sounds pretty far away, it makes sense since animated productions always take a long stretch of time to finish. So the 4-year gap isn't surprising, but the schedule could shift depending on how the production process moves. For now, neither Netflix nor Sony is adding more details, which tracks with how tightly they usually guard early development info. What really pushed all this forward is the impact of the first movie, KPopDemonHunters, which centers around a fictional K-pop girl group who save the world from demons using their music, turned into a major win for Sony Pictures Animation. Because of the licensing deal between Sony and Netflix, the movie went straight to streaming, and it ended up becoming Netflix's most popular movie of all time. And although the film dominated the platform, its reach extended way beyond that because 3 of its songs, Golden, Your Idol, and Soda Pop, managed to stay on the Billboard Hot 100 for months. So with that kind of momentum, those songs could easily end up with Grammy nominations, at least based on how award chatter has been growing. Even though Netflix almost never pushes theatrical events, the company made a rare exception with this movie. Because fans wouldn't stop talking about it, Netflix chose to release a sing-along version in theaters in August and again around Halloween. The August run pulled an impressive $18 million in just 2 days. Then the Halloween screenings added another $5 million to $6 million. And that's notable because the movie had already been streaming for months, so there was basically no exclusivity window at all. Netflix didn't report any official box office totals, but exhibitors did confirm those numbers. Co-director Maggie Kang, who worked alongside Chris Applehans, had been vocal about wanting a sequel even before this official green light. She mentioned over the summer that they left several story threads untouched because the original film only had an 85-minute runtime. And although they wrapped what they could, there was still a bunch of unexplored backstory they always intended to revisit. The team likely saw the theatrical success of the sing-along version as proof that the universe had more room to grow. Kang and Applehans also talked about the future during interviews with outlets like Screen Rant and the BBC. They explained that they created several side stories in their early development documents, so expanding into new arcs felt natural. The directors mentioned they had ideas sitting in the background that could work for sequels, because certain questions were answered but not fully resolved. According to them, the world they built still has space for new characters, new missions, and storylines that shift into different locations. Because of that, the next chapter doesn't necessarily need to follow Jinwoo and Rumi directly, especially since their arcs were wrapped cleanly by the end of the first movie. So even though their story might be complete, the universe itself is far from finished. After the sequel announcement became public, the voices behind Hunter X also shared their hopes for where things could go. The animated film follows Rumi, Mira, and Zoe, the members of Hunter X, as they juggle being global idols and demon hunters. The group became a cultural force during the summer of 2025, breaking several streaming records and dominating social media trends. Although their speaking voices came from Arden Cho, Mei Hong, and Ji Young Yu, their singing voices came from Ijai, Audrey Nuna, and Ray Ami. Because the trio performed live on huge shows like Saturday Night Live and The Tonight Show, it's pretty clear that they'll be part of the sequel. In their interview with Collider, all 3 singers talked about what they wanted the next film to explore. Nuna mentioned that she hoped the sequel would take the girls to different cities, because the story had already shown how global the group's reach had become. She explained that the movie and real-life pop culture almost seemed to mirror each other, so it would be fun to see the fictional group stepping into worldwide settings that reflect the film's impact. EJA said she hoped the sequel would bring in more traditional Korean culture, whether through history, food, or music. She felt that the first movie represented Korean elements well, so expanding on that would be meaningful. Ami, however, focused on the story direction. She said she wanted an origin story detailing how the girls first came together. And although she liked the idea of a prequel, she also floated the idea of bringing back Guima, the Demon King sealed away at the end of the first film. Because the sequel's villain hasn't been confirmed, she said she was curious to see whether the next threat would come from someone entirely new or circle back to Guima's legacy. The cast also said in an earlier conversation with Screen Rant's Ash Crossan that they wanted the sequel to finally address the mystery around Rumi's parentage. Even though the first film dropped hints, it never gave solid answers, so that lingering question stands out as one of the biggest unresolved threads in the story. All of this ties directly into Netflix's broader strategy. For nearly 2 decades, Netflix has relied on its streaming-first structure, but K-pop Demon Hunters 2 may force the company to rethink the strategy it uses for event-level releases. Because Netflix has had enormous hits like Stranger Things, Squid Game, and Wednesday, it has gotten used to lightning-in-a-bottle success, but K-pop Demon Hunters moved into a different category altogether because it became the most watched movie in the platform's history and achieved theatrical success at the same time. Netflix has tried limited theatrical releases before with titles like Glass Onion and Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, but those didn't perform anywhere close to what traditional studios consider strong theatrical numbers. Because Netflix usually opens films for just a few days before putting them online, most theater goers choose to wait. But K-pop Demon Hunters 2 might be the project that convinces them to shift the model, at least for special cases. The 2 sing-along releases already made history for the streamer. Despite the movie being easy to watch at home, fans still spent a combined $24 million in theaters across just 2 weekends. And it even outperformed several major new releases during those periods. That means the sequel has the potential to become a full-scale theatrical event instead of a limited gimmick. Because of this, it would be a huge missed opportunity if Netflix didn't take advantage of the sequel's hype. K-pop Demon Hunters 2 will likely draw an audience far beyond regular Netflix subscribers. And although streaming obviously drives customer engagement, theatrical revenue and cultural visibility are something Netflix rarely gets to claim, so a theatrical push would help the sequel reach fans who prefer the full cinema experience while still promoting the streaming platform. For the sequel's release to be as big as it deserves, Netflix would need to coordinate with theaters, because cinema chains usually ask for temporary exclusivity before a title becomes available online. Although that could complicate things, the reward seems worth it because K-pop Demon Hunters has already proven it can perform in both spaces. And although the logistics may take extra work, the impact on fans and the platform would likely outweigh the inconvenience. The first movie's combination of global music success, massive streaming numbers, and an unexpectedly strong theatrical presence signals that K-pop Demon Hunters 2 isn't just another Netflix title. It's the kind of franchise-level property that could redefine how the company handles future blockbuster-style releases. The sequel's popularity is practically guaranteed because the first film built a huge community of fans who connected with the blend of music, mythology, K-pop culture, and supernatural action. And although the next chapter will introduce new locations, challenges, and possibly a new villain, it will still carry the same energy that fueled the original. Because the universe is so open and the creative team has so many untapped ideas, the sequel can push the story in multiple directions without breaking what made the first movie stand out. But no matter where they take it, the response to the first film shows the sequel has the potential to become one of Netflix's biggest releases of the decade, possibly even bigger than the original. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.